Pivot steps team, let's have a look at them, their uses defensively and offensively. Let's go. Welcome back to the Sweet Science team. In today's video, we're going to take a look at pivot steps. 6 ways to pivot step, and we're going to use them offensively and defensively. First things first, thank you everyone who has liked and subscribed. Don't be afraid to do that if you've not done it already. It's really helping the channel grow. But let's get on with today's lesson. So the lead foot inside pivot, we're going to assume that we are in a closed stance, i.e. orthodox v orthodox or southpaw v southpaw. So a lead foot inside pivot. Essentially, all I'm doing is I'm pivoting on the lead foot and turning 45 to 90 degrees, no more. So, looks a bit like this. I've pivoted on the front foot. Common mistake. Everyone does this. So I'm going to keep my head, I'm going to keep my weight on my front foot. See how my head's not really moved anywhere. If you watch closely, I actually drop my weight to my back foot here, and my head is slightly offline. It's a very common mistake. Avoid it. If I do it from this direction, you'll see it better. Here's where my head is. I kept my weight on my front foot. I dropped my weight to my back foot on that one. So this one I primarily use when someone is moving. Maybe they have slipped my straight right, because this helps as well. So from a good stance, I've thrown a straight right, they've slipped. Using the pull of that shoulder and the push from that leg, I'm going to quickly turn onto my opponent. So of course you can put this into some key skills already. You can shadow box this, but imagine I'm throwing a jab, I'm throwing a cross, this person has slipped and moving around here. I'm going to pull this shoulder, push off this leg, drop your weight to the back, and you can immediately fire again from there. So this one primarily defensive. Not really going to do this one as setting up an attack because my opponent's here. If I go, no, I'd use a different pivot step to cut an angle, which we'll get onto shortly. So, little drill, jab, cross, pull the shoulder, push from the back leg, jab, cross. Make sure you're dropping the weight to the back foot. Jab, cross, pull, jab, cross. One more time. Lead foot inside pivot step. Practice it lots and lots and lots, but we'll move on to the next one. So the step pivot. It's exactly the same direction. We'll call it an inside slip again. It's essentially the same thing of what we've just done. So I didn't move the foot this time, although this time I'm going to step outside of my lane and create a new line of attack. So this one, my opponent isn't moving around here. I'm not trying to get back onto my target. I'm setting my shots, stepping, creating an angle. Weight must transfer to the back foot. Please don't get in that very beginner habit that people get where they keep their head over the front foot. So if we've done either just from a step and an angle, weight to the back foot, or off of a slip and a step, weight to the back foot to create a new line of attack. Think of some of the key skills we've talked about already. Push-up jabs. If you can go step, 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 you can almost set this up in a nice little combination. Jab, cross, lateral step, jab, there's my first step. As I'm pulling back round, create the angle, jab, cross. So there's a nice little drill for you to shadow box. Take your time, build it up stage by stage, jab, cross, jab, there's my step. As I'm pulling back round, jab, cross. That could be a cross hook because the weight is on the back foot. Jab, cross, lateral step, weight to the back foot, long range hook on the end. Anything works for this really. You could just work from a slip. Yeah, incoming punch, slip and step. Weight's gone to the front foot, has to because of the slip. Don't forget, as you're pushing from the back leg, to drop it back to the back leg from there. Don't get this habit of staying on the front foot. It is a bad mistake to make and you'll get countered quite easily. So a quick demonstration using the bag, why the first one is more of a defensive one when someone's moving and the second one is more offensive, for instance. So here's my opponent, and if I just pivot turn, so I'm not going to move my front foot, jab, cross, whichever, and I just move my my back foot, my punch bag's not there, that person hasn't moved. Whereas, if I step and pivot, I'm still on target. So it's a nice little combination to work on your bag. Jab, cross, jab. I'm going to use the step and slip. So I'm going to take the outside lane, slip my shoulder, pull around to the back foot. I've created a new angle of attack. Jab, cross, jab, slip, step, pivot, attack. Jab, cross, jab, slip, step, pivot. Of course, it doesn't have to be that combination. You can put any combination on that you want to. The drill is actually the slip and the step. If I just use a defensive pivot, I don't have a target on a bag. Any combination, but you need to create the offensive pivot, i.e. take the outside lane to set up your new angle of attack. Don't quite know what a langle is, it's similar to an angle. So, outside pivots. Similar thing, we're not going to move the front foot. Now, someone didn't explain to me many years ago about dropping the weight to the back foot, and I couldn't see how this would give me an advantage because they didn't tell me to drop the weight. So, essentially all I'm doing is I'm pushing off the lead foot and I'm actually just dropping to my right. So done correctly, I'm going to push from this leg and I'm dropping my right foot over here. Now in the beginning, when it was poorly explained to me, every time I'd done this, look where my head is. I would pivot, keep the weight on the front foot, see my head is still in line, and I could never make that work. And I couldn't figure out why. Maybe I was a little bit silly. But if you keep your weight on your front foot, your head stays in lane 2. I want my head to go off into lane 3. So I do exactly the same thing. I push from the lead leg, I drop to my right. See how my head is slightly out of lane 2 now. This can be used offensively and defensively. Sets up a nice little count of 3 on the end. However we're doing it, as I'm pulling this shoulder back and I'm dropping over here. And I get a nice hook to the body. We'll have a look at that on the bag in a second. But key point, it's definitely not that. And I see that so often. Grab a camera, get a friend to film you or something like that, because there's a high probability you are, when you're doing this slip, turning on the front foot, which you should be, but your head is in line with your knee. Okay, you're putting weight down and turning. It's okay to do that if your opponent's buggered off around the ring somewhere. Of course it is, he can't hit you. If they're anywhere near the edge of range or in range, you need to drop that weight to the back foot so you can then start to counter again from there. So, key points. I'm pushing from the lead leg and I'm dropping my weight. Okay, I'm not staying over. I'm dropping my weight to my lead leg, my rear leg, to set up, well, 1, to get my head offline, and 2, to set up an immediate counter from there. So, outside pivot step without moving the lead leg is just pushing and dropping. No more than 90 degrees. You could do that 245, of course you could. Yeah. But no more than 90 degrees. Have a practice at that, guys. So as an example on the bag of what's right and what's wrong, and also how I like to use body mechanics. So we're going to fire a 1-2, 1-2, because I like the pull of the rear shoulder to help me get that angle. First off, I'm going to not transfer my weight to the back foot. I'm going to do super slow, and I'm too close anyway, but jab, cross, I'm going to keep the weight over the front foot as I pull the rear shoulder back. That'd be a very weird punch. Jab, cross, That's super close, not great. I'm going to do exactly the same drill, but not move my front foot, but drop my weight to the back foot. Jab, cross, drop the weight to the back foot. Front foot's in exactly the same position it was, but I've dropped back. So here's the incorrect way. Weight's on the front foot, that's a very weird shot, and my head is right in line. Jab, cross, drop the weight to the back foot, and I've got a good solid hook on the end of there. So, it's not a bad little bag drill for you to work your pivot steps, your body mechanics, and layering some key skills together. Give it a try. So taking the outside lane with this, so I'm going to pivot step to the same side. This does involve a little bit of footwork that I don't like. Okay, so this would be a defensive slip, not necessarily offensive. So first rule we always tell people in boxing about footwork is don't cross your feet. However, to make this step, I've got to take my lead foot over outside your lead foot to be able to turn. More commonly, I would do this off of a jab. Your jab's coming in, I'm going to slip and step and pivot from there. If you're going to do that, make sure that you are watching yourself in the mirror, because everyone thinks this is cool. You'll naturally want to do this. Drop that hand. I have no idea why we do it, other than we think it looks cool. That's incorrect. Okay, so make sure you're keeping this shape and form, step and pivot round from there. This also brings up the, I suppose you could say, argument of feet 45 degrees or front foot pointing forwards. The reason why I say that, my foot is 45 degrees, you only have to do a little step. You don't have to completely cross your feet to get around. If you're stepping there. If I do that, you've got to step further around my outside leg to make that pivot step work. If you look at some of the old greats in boxing, a lot of their front foot was pointing forwards, this back foot was planted, not up on their heels. I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's wrong. They were heavy hitters, and it was hard to get round on the outside of them. I do teach feet 45 degrees, but if that front foot is slightly more straight, you are going to have to step over that line to get round. And anytime I'm like this, I am not defensively responsible. Said it before, put your feet like this and try and hit your punch bag as hard as you can, you can't do it. Okay? So this is on defensive movement. I'm timing the jab, getting inside and working from there. Don't forget, drop your weight to the back foot. So, key points. This is a no-no. You need to look at what your opponent's foot is doing to decide whether you can just get away with jumping onto the same train track as your back foot so you're not crossed, or whether it's pointing forward, so you've got to get around that to turn. So, from here, yeah, still dropping the weight to the back foot and turn. Stepping to the outside, it's good for you, you're on the outside, requires a little bit more setting up, it requires timing of an incoming punch as well. Understand the vulnerabilities I don't have a good foundation here. Okay, so it has good points and it has bad points. As long as you understand them, you're good to go. Rear foot pivot steps. You're in a boxing ring. Okay, if I have center of the ring, I don't want to give that up. Okay, so rear foot pivot steps. If I'm going to turn this direction, essentially what I'm going to do, I'm going to push from my rear leg and turn. If I'm going to turn to my right and push from my lead leg and turn. Very underrated, but here's a good way for you to think about it. Right now, you are out on the ropes, okay? And you're trying to circle around me one way or another. If as you're circling, I keep making my little pivot turns, you've got center of the ring. I know, right, I know as you're going, I could cut off the ring, whichever way you're going, that's a different story. If I'm trying to hold center of the ring, and you're circling around me, I'm going to back foot pivot here as well. So, that's the primary use for it. Other than, if someone was to try and do an outside turn on me, the common thing is they step, you go and you're back on line with each other. You can beat them to that angle with a rear foot pivot step. Imagine right now you are taking that outside pivot step. You've got a step, turn, fire your shot. Yeah, you're making your move. I'm there before you. Yeah, if I do exactly the same thing, it's whoever gets there quickest. And this is a game of inches and seconds, okay? So if we do exactly the same thing at exactly the same time, no one has the advantage. I can quickly stop that with a rear foot pivot. I wouldn't use it personally if someone was slipping this way to me, because I'm going to close a distance unless that was my objective. I'm going to step into them this way. I'm keeping a little bit further distance, staying a little bit safer. Primarily I use it to control the center of the ring. And you can put that in with your jab, just keeping person at range, holding center of the ring. So rear foot pivot steps, if you're not practicing them, you should. Pushing from my rear leg to my left. Pushing from my front leg to my right. And again, I'm just doing small little angle adjustments to wherever I'm imagining my opponent is going to. Something else for you to practice, guys. So in a previous video, we gave you some footwork, basic footwork for you to really think about and master. We can add these steps to that footwork pattern. What I'll do, if you've missed it, I'll leave a link in the description below. But it was obviously forming a good stance, hands up, chin down, elbows tight, knees soft, bladed stance. And we went forward 2 steps with a movement step and a recovery step. Backwards, movement and recovery. We went lateral, lateral, up the diagonal, down the diagonal. Without doing the step pivots, we can now add in pivot one way, come back, pivot the other way, pivot and pivot. So that's something that you should be practicing. I'm not going to say on a daily basis. Maybe you don't have the time or the mindset, because that's quite boring. But it is something you need to do. Boxing is about your feet. These are just what we hit with. Okay, if your foundation is wrong, everything else is wrong. It doesn't just have to be that exact pattern. Why not go forward 2 steps? Backwards 2 steps. Lateral 2 steps. Lateral 2 steps. Up the line, down the line. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, from there. Add that into a warm-up, okay? Just get your feet going. Remember, however far the front foot moves, the back foot moves the same. We don't want little step, big step. We don't want step, no step, okay? Because it all goes in with your key skills. You need to be able to deliver your punches, and your feet are your delivery system. Don't forget, your back foot is your engine. Yeah. Work on them, guys. Work that footwork. Try some of the drills we've just looked at there. Work your pivot steps. Remember, they are offensive and defensive. Knowing which one to use at which time is a key skill. So there's a little look at 6 ways you can use your pivot steps offensively, defensively. Please do not underestimate your footwork and how good your feet need to be successful with boxing. Channel is blowing up, and it's thanks to you guys, everyone that's liked and subscribed. So please keep it up. It helps us get out there more, so more people can see the way that we like to teach boxing. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.